Welcome in. We're back. It is June 10th, and we're ready for another exciting episode. Mandy, how are we doing today? I want you to tell us first how we're doing and explain all the goodness that you had, because you just had a big event this past weekend.
Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. Happy 6/10/24. This is exciting. We're in the middle of the year.
Yes.
We're in the middle of the year. It's amazing. And yes, I had a spectacular event this past week. This was the first time in 14 years since I've been with HPN Global that I did a client event. So I've attended a bunch of client events. We've done a bunch of group things, but never anything specifically curated for my customers. And the meeting planning team at HPN just hit it out of the park. So I had this crazy idea. And the idea is I wanted to do something for my customers. So at the beginning of the year, I sent a survey to my customers and I said, would you rather do an epic baseball event or a concert kind of thing? Would you rather do a food and dinner wine pairing kind of, really cool culinary experience? Or would you like to do a wellness event? And 63% of them came back and said a wellness event. So which I was surprised by. I thought maybe I'm the only weirdo that like wants to, meditate and do pickleball together, but they wanted to do that too. So I created this event called the All About You Adventure. And the whole thing, it was a 2.5-day event here in San Diego at the Estancia Hotel. They nailed it, by the way. If you're ever looking to do a wellness retreat executive event, go to Estancia. It was the perfect setting for it. And we did it. We had Jennifer Cassetta as our opening keynote speaker, former guest on our show. And she talked about self-defense and wellness and stepping into your power. We had a beautiful dinner at the Lodge at Torrey Pines. Fit City Adventures, run by Angela Minardi, another previous guest on our show. She did wellness activities, so yoga and a gratitude journaling and a sound bath. And then we had a wellness panel. We had a really delicious brunch where we had a wellness panel, and we flew Jenny Perrin in from Ohio, and another previous guest from the show, Jenny Perrin, who talked really about how to stay well and healthy while you're on the road. And we talked a lot about sleep, and we talked about filling your cup before you fill everybody else's cup. We talked about wellness programming, how to, like, if you've never incorporated any wellness programming or content into your meeting, like what's a really good first step. So it was awesome. I mean, the whole thing, the meeting planners, they got to get spa treatments. We did a hard hat of the brand new Gaylord Pacific, which is the new Gaylord that's opening up in San Diego next year. So it was highly educational and really experiential. And I'm so happy we did it. The customer feedback was so great. And I felt, I've known my customers a long time, but I feel closer to them than ever before because we really got to have some solid one-on-one time. So thank you for asking. I'm
Congratulations.
very proud of it, and I'm very happy we did it.
You should be proud. Congratulations. How big is that Gaylord Hotel going to be? How many rooms?
1,600 rooms.
Ooh, wow.
And you know what? Like, I think if you think a 1,600 room hotel, you're like, "Oh, that's too big for me." I will tell you, the way they have this thing laid out, you could be a group of 30 and you're not gonna feel like you're in a 1,600 room hotel. It's spread out in different wings. There's a lot of outdoor activations. They utilize the acreage and the space really well, and it's all in the water. So I would just that was my big takeaway is like there's natural light everywhere, and just don't think you're in a big box hotel. It does really have a little bit of something for everybody. That's the perception I got at least of it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done.
What about you, Amani? What is something that made you laugh this weekend, and what is something you've been working on this past week?
Okay. What made me laugh this
Yeah.
weekend? Well, what made me laugh is when I was driving in my car, I look at the temperature, it was 111 degrees. I said,
Oh,
wow, this must
summer
be
in Vegas.
what health is like. So yes, that's what made me do it. What am I working on? Besides the book, which is the main focus, just getting a little more settled in the house now that I don't have to go back and forth to school. And I went to a Howard University alumni event over the weekend, which was cool to see people in Vegas who are alumni.
Cool. That's super cool. How's your sleep going? I know that was one of your goals for this year. How's your sleep? What's an update on your sleep?
So you see the aura. I have the aura,
Yes.
and it's helping me sleep. It really reminds you to go to sleep on time. It tracks I don't know the definitions of the different, there's three different ways you sleep. Deep sleep, I think it's REM, and then light sleep. So it helps you track that. To try to do that a little better, make sure you stay active. So I would say 6 out of 7 days a week, I can sleep really well. There's always one day that my sleep is off. Now it could be something that maybe I read and that worries me, or you get triggered about flashbacks, but 6 out of 7 days is better than I was doing before, because before it's about 4 out of 7. So I'm trying to get 7 out of 7. So sleep is improving. I have my
Good.
results. And so this aura ring is helping just to kind of monitor and everything. So yeah, but getting sleep
So
on time is really important, and trying to
mhm.
get my 8 hours in somehow.
So listeners, what Amani just did, if you're listening and not watching, is he held up his index finger and he has the Aura ring on his index finger. Now he's punching the screen. I'm just kidding. He's not. He's not.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's it. But thank you for asking. I'll keep giving updates.
Okay.
Um, who do we have the pleasure of talking to today?
We have a powerhouse today. I'm so excited. She's one of us. She's an events expert for more than 20 years. She's a highly sought after keynote speaker. And we know that because we saw her speak at MPI WeCon. We just saw her speak. She's a leader and a speaker about leadership and sustainability. And she's about to launch her very own podcast. We have
Yeah.
Courtney Lohmann. Come to the
So
screen.
Courtney's on the screen here. We're gonna give her a round of applause.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Courtney.
So,
Very excited to be here. Thank you.
we are excited to
Welcome.
have you. We get a bonus because we saw you speak a couple months ago. Now we get to host you. I'm curious though, when you were at Florida State,
Yes.
did you
Right
ever
into it.
imagine? No, I guess we gotta ask. Did you ever imagine this would be what you would be doing a few years later?
Yeah, yes, a few years.
I said a
Few
few
years.
years.
I was in high school. I emceed our pep assemblies anyway.
Go ahead. So keep going. So you were saying that
Yeah.
you the pep assemblies. Keep going.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I was the MC of the pep assemblies. There was like 3,000 students at my school. So I did that just because there was like a whole committee that wanted to shake things up. And I was like, well, I can do it. I don't mind. I mean, no experience, never taken a speech class, nothing. I was just like, sure, no problem.
Okay. All right. Um, how did you kind of work your way into talking about? Oh, hold on. Let's see here. What's going on here? Let's looky here. Where are we at here? Freezing a little bit here. Um, Okay, so we see you there. So how did you work your way into focusing and talking and researching sustainability? How did you get there in your journey?
That's kind of interesting as well. It was one of those it was kind of like a slow roll, so to speak. It was there were things I saw early in my events career that really bothered of waste. And the overflowing dumpsters of waste were just really bothersome to me. And that kind of continued and snowballed throughout my career. And I landed in 2014 in a place where I was really sort of ready to walk away from the industry as a whole. I was tired of the excess. I felt like we had really become this industry that was only concerned about excess, and I was just doing a lot of wasting in general. And I found the Green Meeting Industry Council's annual sustainability conference. So I had no idea the group was out there, and the group was working to really try to create change within our industry. They are now no longer, they got rolled into the Events Industry Council, just so everyone knows. But the I sort of showed up not knowing what to expect, and it was like one of those, like, the lights are coming down. I was like, oh, I have found my people. Like, this is where I need to be. So that really sort of reinvigorated my career, and then I dove fully into it. I mean, it was like nothing else then really kind of mattered from that point forward.
It's interesting to me because a lot of us, right? We do events, we see events, we attend events. We'll see the piles and piles of waste and we'll think nothing of it. So, where does this passion come from? Like, is this something that happened while you were growing up? Was this something that just clicked for you? Because I think we're all having the same experience, but you're really driven and passionate about it. Where does that desire come from?
You froze for a second on me, Mandy, but I'm assuming you're saying that we're all having that experience, but you're like that I'm really passionate about it. Was that where you were
Yeah.
going? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of different things. I grew up in a household where, sorry, I saw that I froze. So I grew up in a house where it was like I was in like a very little bit of a hippie situation. Like my mom didn't allow us to have sugar as kids, and we were really exposed to a lot of different cultural things and historical things, and nature in general, and just kind of how we were brought up. And so I think I just fell in love with the environment as a whole. And then I have this real sort of adventurous spirit anyway, and so I'm all about, when I travel to really understand and explore the different cultures that are out there, and whatever their environment is within where they live and they play and they work. And so it's all of those sort of interests, I think, that have compounded over the years. And then when you're able to sort of bring those things together and pour it into what you do for work, then it sort of just it explodes, right? It becomes something that's even a little bit bigger. And so I guess the way I look at it now is, my best day starts when I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. My best day starts lucky during this time of the year. I will see sea turtle tracks on the sand, right? Like, nothing beats that. You're out in nature, you're seeing the sunrise, it's a new day, you're lucky to be here for another day, you're getting to see, like, everything about nature happening before you. I mean, those are just the things.
Yeah, you froze for a second, but we heard about the no, we heard about the sea turtle tracks
Yes.
and that you're exposed to nature every day. And what I
Yeah.
love about that is your mom had something she was passionate about, and
Yeah.
she shared that with you because so many, and I'm not a parent, but there's so many parents out there that they're passionate about some things, but they don't expose their kids to it because they don't want to bombard them. But like, look at the results of your mom living out her passion and what that's created for you. So I think that's a really cool blueprint for any parents that might be listening of like, you don't know what your kids are picking up. You don't know what
No.
influence you're having, and you're creating a whole career of it as a result. I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, she's a real adventurer at heart, and I think an appreciator of a lot of of different things, especially when it comes to the environment and cultures as a whole. I mean, she traveled around Europe in 1970 with two girlfriends in a VW Bug, like
Oh,
for
love
three and a
that.
half months. And
Wow.
then when she was 65 or so, she's almost 70 maybe, she went to Bali by herself for like 4 or 5 weeks and traveled all around Bali by herself. I mean, she's like 5'2" and 120 pounds. She's this little thing that little kind of spitball that's out there. And she's inspired. I think a lot of that has inspired myself and my siblings to really follow those things that mean the most to you, and that really drive your passion, and to understand what that passion is and how that fits with your purpose.
I love that. That's beautiful. Siblings. So where are you in the birth order? How many of you are there? We're frozen. Suspense.
Yeah,
Oh, well, you're back.
sibling.
You're back.
Birth order. The
How
birth order
how
of your
birth
siblings.
order? Yeah, and how many?
Birth order, I'm in the middle. I spent 9.5 years as the second child and baby, and then my sister came along, and I became a middle child. So I have all kinds of issues. It's great. It's great.
Oopsies. Oopsies. You're the youngest. You're the youngest. You're also the middle. Then it was like,
Yeah,
why'd you have to have that other kid? You got
yeah.
this is
Oh
like
yeah.
we've got therapy for days on
Yeah.
this.
Oh, completely, completely. It was a ball. My sister was the greatest thing ever. I was the only like, what was I, third grade? I was the only third grader that had a real live living doll at my house. It was amazing.
Aw, that's
That's funny.
cute. That's cute.
I kind
Yeah.
of want to go back to the beginning of your career, but I want to ask you about the different cities you've lived in, because you lived in Orlando, Seattle, Chicago, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Charleston. That's an amazing list of cities that you've lived in. How were you able to get adjusted in each city, and why did you move around so much?
The why is literally the just because. Like
Mhm.
I had never been west of the Mississippi when I graduated from college, and a friend got into grad school in Seattle, and I was looking for a job and applying for any job west of the Mississippi. I did not care what city it was in. I was going to go. So when she got into Seattle, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool. How about if I pack up all my stuff and meet you there?" And she was game. We had a good time, but I would say ultimately it's the adventure of it. Um, I love experiencing new and different things, and traveling around the US is a cultural experience in and of itself. Like the foods are different, the people are different, the activities are different, and then you just get to kind of pique all these different interests that you have. In terms of like fitting in and all the different places I've gone, I have used a plethora of different I guess options over the years. So early on when I was much younger, I played a lot of sports. And so I signed up for like the sport and social leagues and would
Mhm.
meet people that way. I always moved without a job. I've never had a job before I moved. So I was always sort of like interviewing and requesting. And we're back. There we
Yeah.
are. And
Yeah.
so like and this was before my first move out to Seattle, was before the internet was really a thing. Like you still got the newspaper and you scanned for job postings in the newspaper, right? Like I mean it was a totally different process. But I kind of met people that way through work. I know, I guess I'm fairly social. I would go to FSU Alumni Association events if there was a group in the area, and Seattle actually had one. We were like a powerhouse group of 25. It was really fun. So yeah, a couple of different things, I guess, over the years, different industry things. As I got further in my career, I joined MPI was, I think, the first one that I joined. So then I got involved in some local MPI things, stuff like that.
Okay. What was maybe the biggest learning you had as, you were working with PRA and kind of planning out events and working with that team? What were some of the biggest learnings you had during your time period with them?
Biggest learning, that was an interesting time, in particular, because I had been with another company that got acquired by them, by PRA. And that was early 2019. And so then from early 2019 to about the end of 2019, I went through a massive transition, because my role was this sort of split role at the previous DMC, where I was doing a lot of of like internal corporate work on sustainability and social impact. And I was working with clients, but then I also managed client events. I've always been in operations. And so when PRA came into the picture, I think there was a little bit of a, what in the world do we do with this person? Like, she's all over the board. Her job description is super random. And so I think it just was a little bit of like conversation with the new leadership and them understanding where to put me. And so 2019 kind of comes to an end, and I'm like in this whole plan and process to be rolled into this corporate.
This is my favorite Frozen picture yet.
We
got you.
Again.
No, I loved it. No, this is we're getting really good at the transitions, but that was the best Frozen picture. So listeners, Courtney just froze like with her. It looked like she was whistling. That was great. But you were
Perfect.
yeah, it was great. So you were saying you were saying they when PRA acquired you, they're like, what do we do with this woman that has all these dynamic skills? Yeah.
So by the end of 2019, they had kind of sorted out, they were going to move me into this role where I'd be sort of a part of the corporate headquarter team, really working on sustainability initiatives for the company as a whole. Well, then COVID happens. And then it really became, well, we need somebody who can just solely focus on health and safety and figure out COVID. And here comes the knock. Hey, Courtney, can we have you project manage this piece while we pause sustainability? And I was like, sure. And I mean, talk about a topic you never thought you were really going to learn about throughout your career. And so I dove in and really became that. Like I just threw myself into, okay, we need a process to keep our team safe. We need a process to talk about this with clients. We need to help our clients navigate how to stay safe. And so it was using all those things in your kind of logistical brain, your project management brain, right? And really understanding how we do events. And so that was the majority of my life for kind of like the first year that I was in this quote unquote, like, position within the corporate arm of PRA. So that was a very interesting learning experience, all new managers, like all new people that you're trying to work with. And then the other really interesting thing about PRA is that once you're there is they have offices all around the United States. And so you're talking about 29 different office locations, at least at that time. That was 29. I don't know where they are today, but and you're working with different leadership teams and then different skill levels. And then when you're talking about, so fast forward, now I'm back to my sustainability role. When you're talking about sustainability and social impact, everyone's at a different educational level. And so as we started to roll out different initiatives, it was really interesting to learn and understand from the teams and get a sense of where they were and where they needed to go, because every group was a little bit different. So I couldn't just write something and send an email and be like, all right, guys, get after it. It was much more of I kind of had to try to customize and understand and learn what the different teams needed. So it was really an interesting and dynamic working environment as a whole. So I was there. It was a total of about 4 years or so that I was there with PRA.
Awesome.
Yeah. I want to hang here on the sustainability leadership piece because it's so hard to turn the ship and then steer the ship sometimes when it comes to the leadership elements of it. So, you have to have buy-off from executive leadership for any project to take place. So if there's people that are listening or that are watching right now and they want to integrate a little more sustainability into their business or into their events, what is a couple cases that can be made to the leadership team if the leadership team isn't on board that just helps move that ship a little bit?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll divide it just because it works better. I feel like it's a better answer if I divide it. So we'll talk from a business standpoint first. Really understanding and aligning the correct sustainability initiatives, I think, is the first key. Sustainability is such a
Oh, and now the arms are out. This is a good one too. So great. I like these frozen pictures, Imani. This is good.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I saw we froze again. Sorry.
You went like that. Sustainability is such a yeah. Okay, we got it.
Sustainability is such a big topic, and then you add like the social elements into it, right? Social and community issues. You add in wellness issues. It's all DEI. All those things really fall under this broad umbrella. And so I think where a lot of times from a business strategy and operational standpoint, where people fall down is they try to bite off way too much, or whatever they've decided to start with doesn't really align well with their internal company ethos. So it's really understanding where your company is, what your company's purpose is, how you serve your market, who your clients are, really going back to your core and understanding your core, and then aligning with sustainability. So you can't just come to the table and say, oh, well, I want to make sure that we have clean water for all. Well, does that even make sense for your business? Like, how does that align with the business you're doing? Do like your clients, your stakeholders care? Like, how does it work from an operational standpoint on a day-to-day basis? What are the costs involved? And can you really commit to that? Because you might not be able to. You have to look at all.
It's another one for you.
It's a great one. I should be taking pictures of these pauses.
I'm sure
Yeah.
we can get the
That
future.
was a
Keep
good
going,
one.
keep going, Courtney.
That was a good one. So you have to be looking at all of the practices, not just siloed.
Yeah, you have to look at all of them, and then you also have to make sure like that you're understanding where you're going to sit from a budgetary standpoint, because you're going to create change to your operation. So picking the right things, understanding it's a complete building block journey. No one is ever going, you're not going to come out of the gate and say, we're going to be zero waste next year. I mean, if you are, you're going to be very disappointed because you're just not going to be able to get there, right? So understanding that it's such a step in kind of process, I think, is the most critical. Being kind to yourself through that process is good.
Awesome.
So yeah. And then from an event standpoint, especially when we talk about events in the corporate space, I think what's really important is to understand how to utilize the internal sustainability team that is taking place and happening in a lot of corporations now. So a lot of corporations have a chief sustainability officer, or a director of sustainability, or something.
So corporate sustainability officer, keep going.
Yep. There's a lot of different titles there, but tapping into that department and understanding what initiatives are actually being pushed out of that department will help you understand how to implement at your event. So there, in corporate events, we have a lot of stakeholders, right? There's a lot of internal stakeholders that have a push and pull for the event planner. So the planner's direct stakeholder might say, I don't care what's happening with sustainability at the company. I just want to plan our events as we've always planned our events, blah, 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 blah. But procurement and other departments are being held to a certain standard that are being set by the chief sustainability officer. So I think as a planner, the first thing I would be doing is making friends with the sustainability department and really understanding how that department works, and then understanding how I work with that department to better then navigate how I report in on what requirements they have, how I work through my supply chain issues, explain to them where some of the holdups are for me, because from a budgetary standpoint, it's so tough. There's a lot you can do there and really kind of partner and align. And I think that's the best thing planners can start to do. You'll also get better educated. That chief sustainability officer is going to give you a ton of information. And then you're going to also tell them a lot of things that they have no idea what happens in the events world, right? So it's a good place to go.
Mutual education for sure. Yeah.
And then as we continue to kind of look at your pathway through your career, about 7 years ago, you then stepped into becoming a keynote speaker. What was your inspiration to do that? And how have you continued to kind of sharpen that sword, so to speak, in the industry?
I heard 7 years ago you stepped into, are you asking about Events Industry Council?
No. Well, we could talk about that, but no, actually, I'm talking about keynote speaking. So you stepped into your keynote speaking role. So what was the inspiration behind that, and how have you been able to continue to sharpen that sword, so to speak?
So that started from that realization moment, and maybe you guys have had it too. I feel like we're probably all at about the same points in our career, right? Like that realization that I had learned a lot, and I just wanted to share. Like I was just excited that I felt like I'd sort of gotten to like the other side of the mountain, and I had had so many mentors help me along the way that I realized I'd gotten to a point where I was like, holy cow, maybe now I can be on that side and I have some information to share, and I can really start to help people kind of move along and speed up their pace. More in sustainability, and I was more excited about sustainability. I just had more and more.
Okay. So as you have continued to grow your speaking career, what have been some key kind of moments where you've kind of started to add on to different content topics and branched out to maybe getting on bigger stages? How have you been able to grow your career?
So the biggest growth I think in my career has probably been in the last year or so. I spent the first part of it talking about it was more of those like tactical, sustainable design type of practices for your business or for your event, right? And it felt very logistical, very operational. Whereas in the last year or so, and I sprinkled a little bit of this in before that, but I'm really talking more now about how you move into this space of impact. And so I talk about impact as igniting more passion to align your commitments and transform. So it's like this idea of how you can really tap
Mm.
into these different elements to create impact within your space. That can be personal impact, that can be your work and your business impact. It can really apply to all of that. And I still apply some of the same tools I've been using for years to help people sort of. It's understanding how you have to use a strategy. I just really think that no matter what, like as much of a free spirit as I am and adventurous as I am and all those things, I always kind of come back to having like a plan in place, whether it's a specific strategy or it's an outlook or it's an approach. Even if it's a fairly loose plan, there is a plan in place. And so if you want to create these changes and you really want to create impact in your space, you've got to put some type of a strategy in place for yourself as well.
Interesting. Well, we've kind of come to the point in the show where we flip the script, and now we let you ask myself and Mandy a question. Any question is on limits, nothing is off limits. Who do you want to ask the question to first?
Well, I would say I can ask either of you could go first. So Mandy's at the top, so I'll start with Mandy just because she's at the top of my screen. But okay, so I just said that for me, impact means igniting more passion to align your commitments and transform. So you have always, you've been out in the industry for a long time and you've always kind of been a mover or shaker. At least that's from what I've seen. And so how would you say you've created impact through your life and your career?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a stumper. I like that, Courtney. I like that. I like that. It's funny. We all see ourselves differently than how other people see us, right? So I think I can only answer for my own perceptions. I mean, I think the impact or the ignite that I might create is just be different, be yourself. But if your self is different, if your most authentic self is different, fly that flag
Yeah.
because people want to know about your experiences. And a lot of times your experiences create value, your personal value in the marketplace. And I think so many times people are like, I'm not going to share that. That's weird. Or I'm not going to share that because I'm embarrassed. Or I'm not going to share that because that makes me look weak. But the reality is I feel that my impact has been is just put it all out there and you will touch the lives of other people. Don't put it out there to touch the lives. Put it out there because you're just living as you are and you don't know what impact you'll make. So I think that to me is what I feel like I have done and I want to continue to do more of. And I hope other people might be like, yeah, Mandy, I see people posting like day 1 of conference takeaways, day 2 of conference. When I see people doing that, I get so excited because I know that's something I do all the time. They're not doing it because I did it, but maybe they saw somebody
Right.
else did it or whatever. So I like that. I like that transition of people just being themselves as much as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think that's a great way to put it and say it as well. Like that it says, I think a lot of times people you start to use terms like impact, or you start to use a term like leadership, and then people think that it has to be some big grand, large idea and totally new concept. And no, it's really just about like tapping into yourself and then what does that mean? And so
Yeah.
the authenticity piece of it is so cool. I love that you've hit on that today.
Yeah, and I hate the word legacy. Like, I
Yeah.
hate like, people will ask me in interviews, they'll be like, what legacy do you want to lead? I'm like, what kind of ego weirdo talks about that? Like,
Yeah.
I won't know. I'll be dead. Like, I won't know what legacy I've left. Like, ask somebody else that's alive. Like, I don't think about that like a legacy thing. I think I'm too young to have that question asked yet. But I don't think you should live your life like that. Like, don't live your life for a legacy. Live your life for yourself or lifting others up around you. But if you're living for a legacy, you're going to be missing out on a
Yeah.
lot.
You
Yeah.
will. I know. I like
Yeah.
that too. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
When we talked about it in the events industry, we talked a lot about like your CSR activity and you're leaving a legacy in the community. I was like, but do we want to go that direction? Yeah.
Feels
Yeah.
yucky to me. Yeah. 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 But
There's other
everybody
ways
looks
you
at it
can say it.
differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so all right, Amani, how about you? How do you feel like you've created impact?
As I'm thinking and I'm listening to Mandy respond, I kind of go back to teaching, at Fullerton, and specifically whenever I have students who come back to me, maybe after they've taken a class or after they've graduated, say, when you taught me how to do X, I then ended up using this in like the real world, like, or we did this and we had this conversation and I was able to speak very knowledgeably about this topic because of what we learned in your class. So that's what I would say. That's the best example for me personally about me making impact, that kind of little things there that continue to accumulate over time and end up to being something really, really big.
That's awesome. I love that
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It's that part that kind of I mean it goes back, I guess I've had some of that feel good, like that internal feel good with the little things that I've done. I haven't done real teaching. Like you're like, I know you're a real teacher, but I've had a little bit of that.
Professor Roberts. Yeah.
Yes, he's a professor, right? Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame. I like 2 or 3 times I was a guest speaker at
Right.
Florida Atlantic University, and I was like, this is the greatest day ever, so it is. It's wonderful to be able to have that kind of impact where you're helping the people grow. You're helping, ultimately those people are growing into other people that are creating impact, right? And they're contributing daily to whatever it is that they've decided to follow as part of their passion. So it's really cool to be in that space. I love that.
Yeah. Cool. I think kind of one of my final questions for you would be, if we go back to when you graduated from Florida State and we were going to go give Courtney that advice based on everything you know now, what advice would you give your younger self who's just about graduated and enter into the world?
Ooh.
Of course, this is one of my favorite questions. So I got my notebook out.
Man, that's a really good one because I am not. That's a really interesting. That's going to be hard for me to answer. So I'm not one of those. I'm not a look backer. I don't know how else to say it. Like I don't like that term, like live with no regrets or whatever. I mean, I think we all have moments that we learn from, right? And if you want to call that a regret, you want to call it a learning moment, that's fine. You use whatever terminology you'd like. I don't usually use the term regret, but I'm also not that one that ever really looks back and dwells from oh, I wish I had kind of train of thought. I think I've looked back on my life and all the things that I've done. And, I've had those moments of retrospect where I'm like, wow, I could have made a better, or not better, better is the wrong word. I could have made a different decision there and I could have ended up here, or, ended up somewhere else. But I don't really look back and think that I wish I had done anything different. So I may have, looking back, I may have told myself to travel solo sooner. I didn't take my first solo trip abroad until I was 27, and I definitely wish I had done more of that earlier on in life. And I mean, and I still do it now as an adult. If you haven't taken a solo trip abroad completely by yourself for at least 30 days in a country where you can't speak the language, I highly suggest you do it. I think it's the most transformative experience you can have in life for yourself. Like I did talk about, like a growth opportunity for yourself. So that might be the only thing I would tell myself to do, is to travel sooner. But no, otherwise, I think I've really enjoyed my ride so far, and I'm looking forward, like as I look forward to whatever the next chapters bring, I'm really excited about what those next chapters are too.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Yeah, perfect.
Great
Um,
answer, great advice, and we all could use that.
yeah.
Whether we're young Courtney or we're now or today. I think that's great advice
Courtney,
all
today.
around. Oh, yeah, or today.
So,
Um, I have a question for people that don't do anything with sustainability right now, but
Yeah.
it's been on their mind. What is one little thing that people can do they can start today? That is just one little foray into the sustainability world that will make a big difference down the road if they just start today.
So you cut out on my end just for a minute. So what could, for people who don't do anything with sustainability, what could they do today that helps them as they go down into the future?
One little nugget. Yeah.
Um, I I mean, just from an actionable standpoint, I would say
Yeah.
if you can start composting at your house.
mm,
Um,
Great.
food waste is probably the biggest thing we should all. Everyone talks carbon, but carbon's more challenging. I was saying everyone talks carbon, but carbon's more challenging on an individual basis. So if you can
mm, composting.
Compost your food. Start today.
yeah,
Compost.
Compost.
start today.
Got it. Got it.
And if you can, like find some.
Hmm. What was the last
And
point?
if
And
you
if
need, oh, I was saying find some good like educational resources on whichever topic around sustainability you like. And if you want some inspiration, visit all of the David Attenborough videos. If that doesn't inspire people to protect the planet, I don't know what will.
all right.
Good advice.
How
Great
how
advice.
can we best support you and share what you're doing with everyone else?
Oh, best support me. I guess follow what I am talking about on LinkedIn. That's probably my number. That's the number one place where I post. So I try to do two different things a week. So I do what I call my carbon cleanse, which is talking a little bit more about business strategy and event strategy and how sustainability works. And then I do my creating impact posts on Thursday, which is where I talk a little bit more inspirational around, what you can do in your life and work or what have you to really create that impact and align with your purpose and your passions and things like that. So that's probably the best place. You check out my website as well. I am going to put my toe into YouTube. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am a little bit nervous, but
You
I
got
do.
this.
Yes, YouTube. It's a great platform. That's a good idea. Let's see. Let's see what happens.
Everybody's on YouTube. I love that. I'm glad you're going to do that. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, and inspired actually by both of you, I am going to be launching a podcast this year at some point. So
Yeah.
I'm going to call it. It is going to be called the Impact Rebel, and it's just because we're going to talk a little bit about how you can come into the space and maybe break some rules while doing it, right? So at some point I am hoping to get those things started to record and launch. I'm hoping later this summer. It is currently underway. So
All right.
Awesome. Well, if you
Congrats.
need support on that, let us know. We're here for you. And we will be on the lookout for Impact Rebel. And everybody that is either listening or watching this, head over to Courtney Lohmann's LinkedIn page, and it's LOHMANN,
Yes.
or CourtneyLohmann.com, or her Instagram page. But we look forward to wonderful, great things from you. And we're inspired by everything you're doing with leadership and sustainability. We need it as humans. Our industry needs it. So we really appreciate you.
All right.
well, thank you both so much. I have really enjoyed being here today. It was so fun talking with you. I love listening to you guys. Thank you for bringing such wonderful and interesting conversations out to all of us. It's awesome.
Our
Kudos.
pleasure.
Awesome.
Round of applause for Courtney here. Yes. We'll put you back in the green room really quickly. All right.
Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Courtney. Okay, Mandy, we're off to getting ready for next week. Who do we have to look forward to next week?
We have a somatic breathing expert, our friend Seppi Ifasi, who is a meeting planner turned entrepreneur. We have a theme here going, Amani. Everybody in the events industry now giving back to the events industry and the things we need, and breathing, healing, and self-care are definitely things we need more of in the
Mhm.
hospitality industry. So I'm very excited for Seppi to be here next week.
Yes, excited. So we'll see you all next week. Remember to tune in. You can tune in live, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. on the West Coast. You can listen to us on your podcast platform of choice. Watch us on YouTube, Spotify, etc. Please remember to rate, review, and share with a friend or colleague. And with that, thanks again to our guest this week, Courtney Lohmann. And we will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.
See you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.